Are you ever trying to study for an exam, but you just can't understand any of the concepts? Or maybe you know you need to start studying for a class, but you just don't know where to start? According to a study conducted by McGraw-Hill in 2023, 21% of students felt unprepared for their classes. Seeing this, you should see that you aren't alone. That's why today, I want to take a deep dive on why studying might seem difficult. Welcome to StudyScience. Hi, my name is Christina, and welcome to StudyScience. This channel is meant to help high school and college students like you be able to learn in new and effective ways to study. I created this channel with the help of my friend Maddie. We met during our freshman year of college and have had to learn how to study in new and different ways as we've gone through college together. We want to help as many people do well in school as possible, which is why I wanted to start this channel to look at why studying might be difficult. I've chosen 4 of my classmates to answer 4 different questions. Is studying difficult for you? How long do you study for a test or exam? How do you study? And are your study methods effective? With these questions, I aim to answer the biggest question. What makes studying so difficult? Is studying difficult for you?
Yes.
How long would you say you study for a test or exam?
I don't have a lot of exams or tests to study for, but usually I study like an hour in advance to that test.
How do you study?
Usually I look over the study guide and I look over my notes, and then I just look over like lecture videos that I might have missed or just like things that I'm not comfortable with, and so I'll just like review that in just like the old lecture videos. So.
Nice. Would you say that's effective?
Half and half. Sometimes it is. It kind of just depends on whether or not I actually know what I'm doing or not. But sometimes it works. Sometimes it absolutely fails. So.
Very fair. Thank you. All right. Is studying difficult for you?
Yes.
How long do you study for a test or exam?
Normally about a week-ish, give or take.
About how many hours would that be?
Like within the week?
Yes.
Depending on the week. Normally, probably like between 2 to 5 hours each day, depending on how much time.
Nice. Cool. How do you study?
Normally, if I have like papers, I'll like go through the papers and or past exams, I'll go through it and then like redo them or like look through them, and then I use my iPad, and because a lot of like geology is like you need to write down like geological timescales, so then I'll just do those over and over and over and over again.
Cool. And then would you say that's effective?
Yes.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Is studying difficult for you?
Yes. It's very difficult.
How long do you study for a test or exam?
It depends on the class. I think like the week of the exam, I'll study for about 5 or 6 hours leading up to it. But I make sure I study at least 2 days before, 2-3 days before. The first time I'll study, I will do it before I go to bed, so that it goes to my brain when I sleep on it. But I think most of the reason I don't have to study that much is because I really try to pay attention during classes, and I take notes during classes, where I'm more locked in on those, and then homeworks. And my rule for myself is I have to be able to explain what I'm doing to someone else. So I think teaching it, the best way for me to learn or to be able to study is to teach someone else it. So I try to study with people who might need a little help or might not understand the material as much. So they ask me a lot of questions, and so I try to make myself available to them to answer the questions. So.
Nice.
and then I also take a lot of notes. So, wait, was that the next question?
Yeah, just how do you study?
Okay, how do I study? Yeah. So I try to take notes. There's two types of things I'll do. I'll go through all the slides. This is why sometimes it can take a while, is I'll go through every single slide deck and I'll write down basically anything important. But if there's any vocab or anything that I might not be able to remember off the top of my head, I'll use note cards. And I think it's good to do. I use a pen and not. I have an iPad. Sometimes I used to use an iPad, but now I've transitioned to pens for memorization because I'm in more memorization classes. But for the problem classes, I'll use a whiteboard to actually do the problems and have to do it all the way through. Another thing I used to do is I'd call my dad or someone who would listen to me rant, and I would explain what I'm doing to them while I'm doing it, so that if I don't understand why I'm doing it, then I can actually catch myself in that process. So there's a few things I try to do.
Nice. And then would you say that's effective?
Yeah, I'd say it's effective. I'm doing well, so.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Is studying difficult for you?
Studying is not difficult for me.
How long do you study for a test or exam?
For a test, I would study for like 30 minutes, and for an exam, like an hour to maybe 2 hours.
Wow. How do you study?
I start my studying in classes. When I take notes, I color coordinate things that can make me helpful for like exams, or like when teachers like, oh, this is gonna be on the test, I kind of like highlight it. And then, so I kind of like color coordinate my notes, and that helps me a lot to study, because then I can remember which notes go with what color. And then at the end of the year for like an exam, I put all my notes in like documents, and like I separated them by the colors that I took them in my notes. And I just like, I like say it a lot to myself, or I write them down. I just kind of like go over my notes, and then I kind of ask ChatGPT to make like a study guide for me, or like a practice exam. And if I feel confident with what I did, I kind of feel like I've done a good enough job studying.
Nice. Would you say that's effective?
In my sense, yeah, I do pretty well on my exams and tests, and yeah, so I feel like it's effective.
Nice. Thank you.
As you can see, there's a lot of different types of brains, different types of thinking, all within the same kind of college students. They have different degrees, but they all have different ways and they all have different ways of thinking. But I have been able to pick up on some similarities. So 3 out of the 4 people found studying difficult, but 2 of the 3 people who found studying difficult found their study methods to be effective. For the people who found it effective, they were writing down their notes, rewriting their notes, they were applying it, they were practicing, they were doing practice problems, literally rewriting the entire geological time scale, and they were doing all of these different things, and they found it extremely effective. Something else I noticed is that they did start studying a couple of days in advance, and this seemed to be very helpful. And with the people who might have struggled a little bit more with studying, something I noticed is that there wasn't as much time put into it. And while it was effective to her, in some moments, other times not necessarily. So that's something I picked up on. I also picked up on her major doesn't require a lot of test-taking skills, so it was nothing that she ever really had to pick up on. So when you don't have to practice test-taking very much, it can be really hard to develop those skills. Whereas some other majors that are more test-heavy, they start to pick up on those skills more so and become more comfortable. The girl who said that she was comfortable with taking tests, it sounded like she had taken a lot of tests before, and she had a whole system laid out for it. And so studying wasn't really necessarily difficult for her. So these are my conclusions. To start studying, you need to be able to study for multiple hours the week of the exam. You also need to be able to rewrite your notes and have some sort of system, whether that be color coordination or writing it down in pen, pencil, just a way to rewrite, be able to go through notes, know what is in your notes. And then finally, you need to be able to practice what's going on, or you need to be able to find a way to, apply this, whether it be by teaching yourself or doing practice problems. That seems to be the most effective ways. And that is my conclusion for how to study and for why studying might be difficult. The question that we're all asking for this video. Studying might be difficult, honestly, depending on your brain. A lot of people, no matter what study methods they had, found studying difficult, even if they had a really in-depth system, compared to people who might not have had that in-depth system but still found it difficult. It depends on the different brains, and even if you do find it difficult to study, we saw half of our people, or 2/3 of the people who actually found it difficult to study, they still were able to have an effective way to do well on these exams. So that is my conclusion for what makes studying so difficult. Thank you for tuning in to Study Science.